Good evening, folks, and a warm and witty welcome to those here in Greystones Library and everyone out there watching online. This is the first ever Ring of Culture event, and we are thrilled to start this journey with our Witty Wicklow Writers Workshop. We just have some tech issues here. It's part of every first chapter.
It went, yeah.
So, we don't want to go vertical. This is not a TikTok. So this is a workshop. It's serious. So this is the place where words, wit, and Wicklow meet, and you are part of it. Although we are trying a new format tonight, which is not a TikTok, we will stick to the old formula. In other words, we'll be discussing the 3 topics, followed by readings from our work. And because we want this session to stay lively and dynamic, we are counting on your input. Folks online are encouraged to share their thoughts and questions in the chat box, while those in person are invited to join the Q&A at the end. Also, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, go ahead and press that beautiful button below, the subscribe button. If you are here in the Greystones Library in the premises, you can scan the QR code and subscribe to the channel. Okay, what are we here for? There are 3 topics, and I want you to listen carefully because you have your word on what's going to happen in the next 1.5 hours. There are 3 topics, so please pay attention to those 3 topics. First one is Bohemians and other writers' stereotypes. Second is pen names. And third is having a pint or a cup of coffee with one of your characters. Now, I don't have an order. I just have a...
It will be a TikTok.
This will be a TikTok. Someone wants that to be TikTok. Yeah.
Just lean in a little bit. Literally lean into it.
Sorry, that our device is taking us out of TikTok. I think we are all old to be a TikTok. I feel that way. Yeah. Right. So.
As long as there's sound.
Yes. Okay, so there are 3 topics, and I like you guys who are in the premises, this beautiful crowd here. I want you to tell me which one you like us to start with. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to say a topic, and if you think that's the right topic to start, please wave. Okay. If you want to leave it for the end, fine. Okay. Yeah, you are 5, so hopefully you can get into a conclusion out of your input. Okay? If not, we'll jump into the conversation. The first one is Bohemians and other writers' stereotypes. How about that as a starting point? Everyone want us to start with that, or you better leave that for the middle or for the end? I don't see.
Oh, they want the personal stuff.
Yeah. Second one is pen names. Should we start with that? There's a lot to be said about it. It seems vague, but it hides a lot of content. Pen names? No.
They want the very personal
Well,
stuff.
And I see, having a pint or a cup of coffee with one of your characters. There's a
Yeah, that's a good one.
There's a overwhelming vote for that one. So we should respect, as people who value democracy and freedom of speech.
And TikTok.
TikTok, yeah. Yeah. You may well try the TikTok form. It looks like it's Da Vinci painting of the, but it's not Christmas yet. Yeah. Hope you guys stay with us despite technical issues. Right. So people have raised their voice, and we're gonna go that route. So we're gonna start with having a pint or a cup of coffee with one of your characters. Okay. So I need to grab my papers, and I want Maria and Jeroen to share an input on that. And I'm gonna start with the lady because I'm a gentleman. So Maria, I know you are not much of a drinker. We are trying to convert you.
Yes,
Hope we will manage at some point. You don't need to be as drink and myself and Jeroen are.
I'll have
But,
chocolate with my character.
Yes, yes. So you have a hot chocolate.
Yes, that's something.
So let us know how we manage that hot chocolate conversation at the meeting.
No, if I have to like picture it in my mind, it will start from actually making the chocolates because you know how I advertise my Greekness every time, and all good conversations happen while we make the food and while we're having the food. So I'll start by making the hot chocolate and trying to figure out what we're going to talk about. Because I think the character that I would choose to have a coffee or chocolate with is the one that I'm writing that takes after myself a bit. So I think I would need all the hot chocolates I could get through this conversation because I think I would dislike him. Do you know if you have a conversation with yourself or if you could replicate yourself, you'd probably hate each other. So I think that that's what's going to happen to me. I think I'm going to find him very obnoxious, very jumping into action before thinking about it. He will not shut up because that's a trait that we share. But I think I would be interested in having this conversation because he's been through some stuff in the fantasy world that he inhabits. So I would like to learn some things about what he's been through, or what he thinks, or why he is the way he is. Maybe I'd understand myself better if I did that. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'd learn something about myself. So yeah, I think I choose the one that's more like me and see if we didn't kill each other by the end of the night.
I never heard of a hot chocolate meeting that ended up with a murder. But I'm open to that outcome because I like different situations that
You'll hear
new to me. I read about it where
if it happens, it'll be the youth probably.
perhaps in TikTok, because we need to surrender to TikTok. TikTok is winning. Maybe we're gonna switch this platform to TikTok in the future. We're going to try to look younger and allow us.
Like some good filters.
Yes, yeah. Well, yeah. Myself, before I pass to you.
Oh, you got the mic.
Never mind. It's a discreet mic. Not as discreet as me, but almost. Yeah, myself, before I pass the word to you, I would bring for sure a character called Ruben. Okay. Now, who is Ruben? Ruben is the main character of a novel I'm publishing later this year. It's called The Return of Ruben, and this it's a novel about a person who is back to his home country, then he returns where he was living. So there's a lot of commonalities between myself and that guy, and I would like to have a chat with him. We wouldn't have a hot chocolate, knowing him and him. We would probably have a pint or a few. Okay, just to make it simple. And we probably will talk a lot of shite. Yeah. And what could I report from that meeting? I don't think I'm able to predict. And even if I go through it, I think most of it will be vanished in a few pints. But for sure, it will be interesting. So I would say Ruben will be the person I would invite for a drink because it will be juicy. Let's put it like that. I had a few juicy drink meetings with Jeroen. So I hope I'm not one of the characters because you like memoirs. But if I am, here I am ready to listen. So let me know who would you go for a drink and how would you expect that meeting to unfold.
So in the fiction work that I'm working on at the moment, I have a character in there, and a little bit like Maria, this character is slightly based on me, very slightly. I mean, she's female, I'm not, clearly. But there's some of her life experience is a little bit reflective of my own life experience. But I think she's an interesting character because she's quite tough. She's been through a lot. She's seen a lot in her life. And I think that she'd be really cool to go for a pint with. She's like a martial artist. She's done a lot of different fighting sports. She's grown up in a really tough neighborhood. She's in a biker gang. She's kind of not your typical kind of girly girl, but and she's got a very kind of a sharp wit, very very intelligent woman. Lives in a junkyard, and I think she would definitely. I'd be very interested in some of the things that she would bring to the conversation. I think it would be a spicy evening in terms of just, I'd probably be shocked. and stuff to come out with.
Yeah.
But it's, yeah,
No, I just want to say that when we are designing our characters, I think, yeah, we think of them as part of the book, but we also tend to imagine how would that happen if I would bump into them, let's say, in a pub, in the beach, in the dark, because they are real. Sometimes they're more real than the people I deal with, on a daily basis.
yeah,
So they are tangible, let's say. They are tangible. You can almost listen to them breathe, whisper, somehow they exist in the shape and form that only of us can recognize. So that's why it's not unusual to think what will happen if we could sit at the same table.
and like that, like some of my characters, I mean, you both know, but some of the characters that I have are based on people that I see on a train or experiences that I've had in a I don't know, public situation or whatever. It might be something that I would see for a couple of minutes and just watch, observe, and I'm noting that down. So there's characters that are built on those kind of experiences. And yes, you're right. You do have that situation where
Yes.
you are wondering, okay, what does that person bring to me, or what, even if you don't know them, you have no idea what they're like in real life. But it is true, we base our characters partially on ourselves and partially on others that we've met along the way,
Yeah.
Um,
Can you guys think, maybe Maria, can you guys think of someone you met at a coffee shop? I'm not going to ask at 2 a.m. the club because I know that's not you. But let's say, and I'm not trying to get sponsorship for Starbucks, although I wouldn't deny. I'm always happy to get a few bucks in my pocket. So, did you ever meet someone in a coffee shop or in in some premises, and then you brought them into the book? So, let's say the other way around. Is it something that you can relate to, or did you ever think about it?
I don't think I've actively incorporated some completely random person that I've met into any of my works, but I've noticed that since I started writing, I analyze what's going on around me more and more. And a lot of times I find myself using these people as like backgrounders or minor characters. So an old man that is, sits in a certain way, or how people address each other, or someone like running around, the things they carry with them, how someone looks when they stumble and I'm too far away to help. That goes into the brain database and I can use it later. But I don't know, that's one of the things that I think writing has given me. I am more aware of where I am and what happens around me because, especially, working corporate, we've all had this kind of jobs. You go in at night, you get out at night, you have no idea what's happening to the world around you. You don't notice things, you just want to go home and fall face first in a pillow and just stay there until 6 a.m. So it has made me more willing to notice people, and I hope I'm not, like very stalky and I'm bothered, and I'll be like, it's so fascinating the way you're holding that cup of hot chocolate, But it definitely helps, and I think I'm learning some things about how I want to interact in situations, because sometimes you may notice a really nice exchange or a really bad exchange, and it will make you think, oh, I can address this situation or I can address this person like that. Even when the very simple thing, when you get in a train and someone falls in you, like they're, especially not being from around here, there are some expressions that I would not use in my everyday life, and I learned them by watching how people interact. Plus, I think it brings flavor, because one thing I personally struggle with is dialogue. And I think I'm only saying things as I would say them. So the more time you spend around people, you hear other voices that make your work more real, because everyone has their own voice, their own kind of thinking. So yeah, I can't think of anyone specific, but I think the loads of them is forming a whole community that goes in and out the different works. And it's helped me visually as well, but also, as a person just seeing, oh, there's, another ways of moving about and of saying things out there. So yeah, maybe some more versatility is coming up. We'll see. But there's definitely some characters out there, I'll say that for sure.
Yeah. There's no shortage of inspiration. If one is open
No.
and it's trying to pick characters for a story, I mean, you just need to go for a walk. And it doesn't matter what time of the day, where, there's always sources for us to build the story. You just need to be creative and pay attention to your surroundings, I would say, because life itself is a story. If you are interested in the story, no,
Mhm.
there's always something there that can be the basis or the beginning for your own. No, I would say because we are in the TikTok version, I'm not able to check the. I can be sponsored by TikTok as well. Now that I have more than 1,000 subscribers, I'm not able to access the comments. If someone in the audience is kind enough to let me know if there's comments in the chat box. If there isn't, no, we will keep the same positive mood. But if there is, I will be happy to bring them into the conversation. If someone can let me know, I'll be thankful. Just this was unexpected. Okay, topic number 2. Yeah, let's ask our viewers in person to choose where should we head next? Bohemians or other writers' stereotypes, or pen names Bohemians or other writers' stereotypes? 2. Okay, so I don't know how others are going to manifest, but I would say they will. Because now sometimes when you don't speak, you speak. You don't know about it. That's how I treat communication. So we go for pen names. Right, we go to pen names, and there's plenty to unpack here. Okay, it seems a very simple and seems very simple topic. Seems there's not much to go through, but I think there is. Like I personally haven't used a pen name myself. My name contains an alliteration, Vítor Vicente, which does the trick. So I better save my creativity. But it's
Great. Maybe the railway will sponsor you now.
Maybe that would be good. Yeah. Workshop on the dart. So as I was saying, my name itself is already creative, but that's not something that is my merit. It's my parents' merit. So shout out for them if they are watching us. So I better save my creativity for the writing itself. But I think at some point, all of us had this thought of should I adopt a pen name? What benefits would I get? Does it make sense for my style of writing? Should I use a fraction of what I write and pick up a pen name? It is something that you seriously consider, Maria, at some point, or it's nowhere in the horizon?
I think I'm always thinking about it really, if I was, lucky enough to get published. But I still haven't made up my mind because sometimes I think, you need to be original. I should keep my own name. That's what, the people that know me as. But then sometimes I think, would it sell well if you want? Because I'm in a foreign country, my name is getting misspelled all the time. And whether we want or not, I think sometimes even when we don't want to, we form opinions on the writer based on their name. Like you wouldn't go for a teenage romance written by a guy that has an old sounding name, perhaps, or perhaps you wouldn't go for a very sports like stuff if you saw a woman's name on it. So I think whether we want or not, sometimes we can judge the book by its cover really. So I'm thinking if I went to a publishing house, for example, would they advise me to change it to something more Irish or more neutral or something that doesn't give away as much information as my actual name does? But I don't know. I think you'd need an expert to tell you for sure, and get a look into your work and in the market that you're in and everything. So I think this is usually if you get traditionally published, I'd say that's not something that you always get to decide yourself. But I don't know, I think I'm leaning more towards keeping my own name, keep the entirety of my work like that, and just be like, this is me. I have to be proud of it and have to not as, not as imposing as it sounds, but because writing is such a personal thing, especially for me, I'm very, not so embarrassed. I'm very shy with sharing stuff that I have done because it's so personal. Sometimes you're not prepared to hear other people judge it or say, oh, really, you're doing that? You can get all sorts of reactions. So I'm thinking if I distinguish myself from it, will I get more honest opinions? Will I get to keep like my privacy or hide myself behind this pen name? But I don't know, sometimes I think it's just a brave thing to do put your foot forward, stand by it. This is who I am, whether I sound, you know, too Greek or too feminine or too whatever. If my work is good, it has to speak for itself, and you can't avoid the judgment from the name. I think I've caught myself a couple of times being like, what like, you know, there's a famous author that has a Greek name. She's not Greek at all. And I found myself going like, should you be doing this? Like, I know this is not your real name. Are you, imposing on the culture a little bit? But I think this is just perhaps remnants of a time where we were more and more skeptical towards these things. And now you can do whatever you want. At the end of the day, it's a print on your work. It's not the work itself. So I guess whatever works best for everyone, for anyone at the end of the day.
Yeah, and pen names can be tricky. Like some people, I know some people, for instance, that instead of adopting a completely different name, they use part of their name. Let's say if you have two names and two surnames, like me, which is always a bureaucratic nightmare. I could use my second name and my first surname. Okay, so that would be Mano Lucio. But the problem with that is that that's the name of my uncle. So people think my books will be written by my uncle. I don't want that to happen. You know, I just don't want that. Maybe he'll be happy, except with the backlash when I write some controversial stuff. But even at that point, I like to be part of the battle. I like to join the arena. But I just said I enjoy the courage of being myself and own the piece of work I produced, for better or worse. This thing belongs to me, so I wouldn't go around with my name, surname, and try to come up with a different persona. Plus, I don't like how it sounds, because it sounds, I don't know, sounds, with all the respect, some, I don't know, rural name or something. I don't like it. You know, you have been in Ireland way longer than I have, you know? we can gather that by your Dublin accent. We spoke about funny name variation that we have heard, talking of mispronunciation, as Maria just mentioned. Would you share with us some of the Jeroen versions you came, because we don't have a lot of time.
No, I was just going to say, how long have you got?
So just speak to two or three and let us know whether those funny variations could be a potential pen name.
Well, no, not really. I mean, like, I worked in a hospital in Galway and I got a pay slip. I actually got 3 pay slips because they made my name a complete mess of my name.
You get paid 3 times.
No, that would have been nice. But one of the names that they addressed the payslip to was Firion Vandommele. Now, I'd like to meet Firion Vandommele sometimes. I'd like to have him for a coffee, but now I don't know if he'd actually sell any books if he called yourself Firion Vandommele. Yeah, but I've had like I could be here all night just giving you the variations. I grew up in the west of Ireland, so you know they looked at my name and they went, "Yes, no, we'll just call you Petty." That was a constant. That was a constant, you know. Or can I just call you Jerry? No, that's not my name. My name's Jeroen.
Everybody.
Yeah, but like I like the idea of a pen name, not necessarily a pen name. I think I'd stick with the name that I have, but I like the idea of writing under somebody else's character. So to actually have not just a pen name, say, but an actual character that I would write as. I think it'd be quite an interesting exercise to see if I could write, you know, something that I am not. So, you know, I don't know, somebody from wherever and, you know, with a totally different job to me and a totally different life experience. I think it'd be interesting to see what would I come out with then as a different character. So not, you know, in that case, I would use a pen name for that character. And I think that'd be an interesting, just something totally different. It'd be almost like you write one as you are, as me, you know, and then I would write, say, in the character of, I'm just saying, like a woman or a character of somebody who comes from another country,
Yeah.
or whatever it is. I know I come from another country already, but you know, that appeals to me, that idea. Or to write even a different genre to what I would normally write under a different character. That kind of appeals to me, and that there's something that I would definitely explore.
Yeah.
But in regards to having a pen name for myself, I don't think I would. I think I'd be just like, well, that's who I am. This is what I've written, you know, kind of like it or lump it, or and take, as you said, take the flack or the, you know, the judgment of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not something I would go to straight away, but I like the idea of writing it in a completely different persona, if you like, and then having a pen name to go with that persona.
Yeah,
That's good.
yeah. That is not that wouldn't be totally new.
No,
Yes, but it's for sure a route to explore. There's a very famous Portuguese poet called Fernando Pessoa, is known not only in Portugal but also abroad. As if you're much into poetry, you would know who we see. So if you're much into football, you know what is Manchester United, no? Even though they are doing very bad nowadays, everybody knows who they are. It's a good reason to have a laugh, no? So Fernando Pessoa is, he has a few pen names, and they all were different. I don't know how many he had. 5, 10, I can't remember now, but at least 3 or 4 they were prominent in his writing, and they all were a character of themselves. You know, they had their own biography, so sometimes they even talk to each other. Like in Fernando Pessoa, these people met at some point. One was the teacher of the other, and then at some point they didn't get along and they pursued different routes, which is very interesting. It's a whole universe. I considered once in my life to do something similar, and I'll never forget that day, because that day was the same day that I came up with the name for my new business venture for the Ring of Culture. So I was traveling in the Ring of Kerry, there's the Ring of Culture,
yeah,
and I thought maybe I could have a few pen names because there are different things I want to write, and I don't think what I've been doing would make sense. They're not totally related. Perhaps I need some fresh blood here, okay? Not only from a commercial perspective, but also from a writing standpoint, okay? So I had a couple in mind. I remember talking to this Lucio again. I wanted to write personal development things under El Lucio, you know, but I gave up. I also thought about calling Vincent Vitor because I'm so used to be called Vincent, you know.
yeah.
I could just give it up. Vincent exists. You were right. You were right. I was just not aware of it. Right? Maybe I'm more Vincent than I knew. So I had a Vincent Vitor. I don't know. I had a few names in mind. I didn't really explore it. I don't exclude this situation for the future, but I don't know. I think I have so much in my plate that I cannot give space for additional things at this point. No? Perhaps I can at some point pick one of those characters I create, and there will be let's call it a separate character, and they have their own writing. But at the moment, it's not on the cards. But it's interesting when you build that character who writes different books and then have a relationship with that person. You could even go for a drink with that character.
Yeah, I'd be out on my own. I'd be out my own in the pub, which is a dangerous thing.
Never happened to you.
No,
When
yeah.
you're in the pub.
Never.
I don't know. We should check TikTok. TikTok might come from the table if they. So, fortunately, I have a lies detector here, so we just trust on the Chinese social media
Next episode.
for next episode. Yeah. Pen names is it's interesting. Maria, did you ever think about having a pen name? Because I know, and I don't want to bring the gender thing here, but women always come from a different place, no? Did you ever think about writing with a neutral that people don't know whether it's a man or a woman?
Yeah, a lot, because fantasy is because fantasy is like male dominated for the most part. There are not a lot of female writers that are very, very well known for fantasy. It has started to shift recently, but the most, well-known authors that you can imagine are, the likes of Tolkien, for example, or what's his name? Peter Rothfuss, or I think it's Peter, or those are the big writers out there. So I think I've thought about it because I recently read a trilogy by Robin Hobb, and I thought that was a male author. Now, when it comes to fantasy, for me, it doesn't really play a role. It's a genre that I love so much that if I'm interested in the book, I think my mind doesn't even process it the way it would process another genre, perhaps. But at some point through the book, I found out that it was a female writer, and I remember being like, "Oh, really?" I did not, expect it so much because it was your traditional fantasy as well. It was the high fantasy, the creatures and the monsters and politics and all of that. And I think even nowadays there's a lot of romance in fantasy when it's written by female authors, and I understand that because that's a thing I believe sometimes women are better at, or how they will write about it might appeal more to women than men. So I can see why there's this tendency. But yeah, because this is my favorite genre and this is what I write like 99% of the time, I've seriously considered, if not going for something completely male, maybe going for a neutral name. And something that is perhaps shorter than my surname and contains less R's, because the amount of times, and I'm looking at you, AIB, the amount of times you send me bills and there are 4 R's in my surname, maybe something without R's altogether might make my life and the publisher's life
You were
easier.
not charged by R, no?
Imagine that. Now that I think about it, that would make sense for some of the quarterly fees.
Yes.
So maybe I need to get back to them. I don't know. Yeah, I've thought about it. I think if I was advised to do it, I would go for it without second thought. But yeah, I see the benefit, I guess, in using different writer names for different things. Like for my fantasy, I go with that. For my, I don't know, like short stories, I go for that. So yeah, I'd consider that. Maybe I need to consider this again after this conversation. I haven't seen the benefit of that before. Less hours, definitely. That's what
Yeah. No, I think the issue is around the commercial. Like if you want to have a name, if you have multiple, then your word will be spread. So that's not very helpful. Having different social media accounts, it's if you fancy, like back in the days of so there was no social media, so it was fine.
Yeah.
yeah.
Even a different role, so it's it doesn't work very, very well. I know people who have pen names in the pen and day and age. They do well. They don't have a lot. Then maybe there's a second one for, I don't know, maybe fiction or something like that. And actually, you mentioned the fantasy. Like fiction is very much women's world. It's like, well, I don't know, 80-90% of the fiction writers are female, and then 90 to 98% of the readers are female. So it's a women's world. And I write fiction. I'm always conscious that it's a hard task because there is a perspective from the writer, that there is also how it's going to be perceived by the reader. But no, it is what it is. I'm not going to change it, and it's not me to tell, okay, I want men to read more fiction. I just think men, and that's an interesting thing. It's not exactly related to what we are discussing, but men are more interested in things, and women are more interested in people. And fiction is about people. That explains, that in a novel there are always a few characters, even if there are two, it's two people. And if you think about scientific books, it's about certain topics, global affairs, and men are more into that. And I think that explains why fiction is so much more appreciated by women and not as much by men. I think so. I'm very much into fiction. Perhaps there's some feminine traits that I have, that fancy stories. The same with poetry. Actually, I'm more into poetry than fiction myself. So actually, I don't read a lot of fiction. Like I'm more of a fiction writer, not as much of a fiction reader. It has to be really, really my type for me to be able to enjoy to the beginning. Against some Michel Houellebecq kind of thing. I really like it. Otherwise, no, it's the classical, say Franz Kafka. Is it something that you consider when you are writing Jeroen, like whether the reader is also a writer, or it's not that relevant?
I don't think it's that relevant, really. I guess, like, yeah, it's not really something that I would consider. I'm working on a fiction book and on a story of my life at the moment. So for me, I think I'm probably too early in the program to, consider, like, if, let's say, if the reader was a writer or anything like that. I think for me, it's more like, you know, I'd like it to be read at some point. Hopefully somebody might like it as well, but it's more that I'd like it to be read. But I think for me, it's actually been more internal. It's a strange thing. I'm writing nearly for myself, which is something I never thought would happen. And certainly since the start, I find that I'm reading it myself for myself, and I'm learning from it for myself. And I've, you know, read it to other people who are in my life and stuff like that. And but it's actually to more to myself kind of thing. Certainly, well, the life work, let's say, is kind of answering questions to myself, which was a totally thing that I never thought was going to happen, but it has happened. So yeah, I haven't really considered that further. You know, I guess I'm too early in the process to consider that. But I think, you know, every writer wants to be read at some point.
Yeah, of course.
You know, that's, you know,
Yeah,
and that, you know, somebody would like it.
yeah.
No, but if I may say, your life reads more like fiction than any fiction I have read, and it's his actual life. Like, if you read that, I remember I told my husband, because he said, you know, he's had a very unusual life, and I said, yeah, okay, I guess he's traveled a lot. Little did I know. So just a little, you know, hint there. More than fiction is the biography.
I mean, that's why I went for a work of fiction as well.
I want to invite the guys who are watching online to subscribe. And if you have a very good reason to subscribe tonight, because we have subscribers 1,000 among us, but if you not, okay? Yeah, if you subscribe tonight, you subscribe on 1,000 among us. That's something to consider. Don't be your average subscription. This time you subscribe under a subscription. Subscribe 1,000 in the middle. There must be something magical out of it. I don't know what is it. I won't tell, but there must be something about it. So I encourage you guys to subscribe. Someone you are here in person, if you haven't subscribed, there's a QR code. I don't know exactly how it works because it's, you know, I'm not very good with technology, but you should be able to subscribe using the QR. I just want to, before I pass to the next topic, we're talking about the Jeroen and Maria talking about the reader. You know, it's not much, I think, in your process, but I think it's not very because you are early stages and haven't received a lot of feedback. And I believe that might change as you encounter, you know, opinions, people's perceptions. You know, not that you want to switch just to make others happy, but we are all impacted by others' point of view. Like, you know, we don't live on a pedestal. We are always exposed to folks' words and, you know, compliments, critiques, and that even if you don't know what others say about what we do, in one way or another, will change us as a writer, same as human beings. Huh? Sometimes we believe that it doesn't matter much what X, Y, or Z mentioned, but probably it does. No, so that's for the future. Talking about the future, we're going to go to the next topic. You guys didn't pick it up. I hope you won't run away if you start talking about it. That's, so you stated, that's a good sign. That's Bohemians and other writers' stereotypes. Yeah. So stereotypes is something that people don't like to admit that they exist, because you live in a very much PC world, and stereotypes looks like generalizations and trying to think that certain groups are they all look alike, and I kind of disagree with that, but I think stereotypes, they come out of something. That's why they exist. They're not always valid, but they're not coming from thin air. Okay, so they do have a reason, although they are not always right. That's what I would say. Now the writer stereotypes that I think are more acknowledged by humanity. One is that writers are Bohemians. Second is that writers are shy, and you can also make the case that some of them are a bit nerdish. I start to do Maria on this. Do you think these labels are still somehow true today, or did they change over time?
I think everything is a bit more lax now, following, you know, the culture and society and everything. But I would say 100% there are stereotypes, and that, you know, I reckon it will be a while before they get to a level where they don't matter as much or they're not as easily found. Like, you know, your nationality, your gender, what you do for a living, whether you are a family person or not, whether you're a pet person or not. And you see that even in things that you wouldn't think it would matter as much, like writing. I mean, imagine if a very well-published writer goes on and says, I hate pets, I would never have a pet. There are some people that are going to take offense in that, and they're going to start calling them names, and they might, you know, stop purchasing their works because there is this stereotype of, you know, people who don't like animals are bad people. But there is a distinction between, I absolutely hate animals, I'd kick them if I saw them, and I don't think I could, you know, I have the willpower that it takes to have a pet, for example. So I think a lot of that is very PC, as you said. It's like sometimes you feel you cannot really express your opinion because people will go to the extremes. And I feel when it comes to writing as well, especially if you want to, you know, share it with the world, sometimes I think, you know, what if I say something that is true for me, and I'm not an extremes person, but someone might misunderstand it, and then they might try to, or you know, subconsciously see that in my work, and they might think that I'm like this or like that. But yeah, while still what I write is very personal to me, I would hate it for someone to think that I am a certain way or another because they're owed something that, you know, they might disagree with, or push me at a very, you know, specific position because I said something like that. And it is something that I like to play with, like what my characters say or what they think, because in a book, especially in fantasy or fiction, you can't have everyone saying the same thing or believe in the same thing. And sometimes for the story, you want to find someone who's, for example, you know, extremely religious, for example, or extremely superstitious. And this is not always your opinion, or you're not making fun of superstitious people by taking a superstitious person and, you know, playing them to the extreme. But I don't know, I would not like to think that we have to dilute the writing so much that no one could get offense in it, because then you're left with a very, very boring piece that doesn't really say anything. It doesn't raise questions, it doesn't make you think. Even this debate, like some of the best conversations I think we've all had is over a movie that we watched or a book that we read, because someone, or a video game, for example. This very recently happened to me. I played this video game and had two endings, and we were arguing over, is this ending better or is that ending better? It creates a conversation, it creates a discussion. So yeah, I think, and I don't know, sometimes I think it would be very hard to find a person that does not believe in even one stereotype. But I think if we're aware that this is something that I believe it's not right for this reason or the other, and try to not let us affect what we write or what we read, I think that's a step, I don't know, towards the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned one thing that I mean we shouldn't let it go. Like this whole preconception that people like animals are good people. And I just look at the big mustache man from the 40s. I'm not going to say his name.
Yeah.
But I think it doesn't, not worth to be referred in this conversation. He was a pet lover. Okay, and among the same crowd, if I'm not mistaken, you know, the dictator of Venezuela, he also loves animals. And he's, you know, I'm not moving to Venezuela because of that. You know? So I think no one, even though I have a mustache now, you know, someone will go there. He also has a mustache, you know. So yeah, I think there's a lot to be said about whether being a pet lover makes you a good person or not. And I tend to think that some people use pets just to show an image of who they are not, you know, it's a visual thing, a kind of thing. And I think that's pretty sad. When you use a being, you know, for your cause, I mean, just show up and present your true colors. And, you know, poor pet being, you know, an object of, you know, of your marketing. I think that's appalling. I think the cats and dogs and birds and rabbits deserve way better usage than, you know, than those endeavors. Now, I would say in terms of stereotypes, because one thing that I wouldn't say it's undisputable, but we can make the case that it has to be true in some shape or form. All writers are introspective people. Otherwise, we wouldn't sit and and write, because there's this whole exercise of going through your thoughts, going through your emotions, your sentiments. So most people don't do this pause in their daily lives and do something out of, what they think, what are they experiencing on a day-to-day basis. So I think we need to be introspective to a degree. It doesn't mean that we don't hang out and you can with others. You can be introspective and extrovert, which is an interesting thing. No, they are compatible, because people think, if you're introspective, you are only where we are now in the library, at the corner with a book. No, you can be introspective because that's your introspective moment. That doesn't define you. It's like the pet. The pet doesn't define you to be a good person. You can hug a pet and then be an asshole. It's possible. I saw it. So we all saw it. It's possible. So now, when it comes to Bohemians, I think it's not as common as it was before. There was this thing of, okay, I'm partying, I'm drinking, I'm smoking, I'm not part of society, and that was something that the artists will embody. Not anymore. Not anymore. When I say not anymore, I'm not saying that this doesn't exist, but it's not a pattern. There are artists who go that route, but there are probably very few if you compare to, say, the 19th century. This was really a model. Nowadays, in my perception, most artists are activists. That's what they are, and I think it's pretty sad. And usually because these activists, they tend not to be rebels. They are part of the system. So if you are part of the system, you cannot be a rebel. And if you are, if you are acting that way, then you are not an artist. You are an activist. You are just, sending some moral message to people, which is fine. You can do that. But if that's all you do, I don't think it will be very much entertaining. At least not to me. I like the idea of writers and artists to be contrarians. I like that we question, we challenge. We push back. But unfortunately, it's the age of conformity. It's not really the situation. So you mentioned a few cliches or stereotypes, Jeroen. Would you really recognize yourself in some of them, or would you distance?
Oh, definitely not. I'm not a Bohemian writer. I say that straight up. But I think part of it as well, I mean, society has changed, history has changed. Back in the day, writers were, like Vítor said, they were outside of society and they like to be outside of society. Now, a lot of the time writers are commenting on society, but maybe not being controversial, or maybe not actually, the other thing is that society itself has completely changed. So it was maybe before more acceptable to be a Bohemian or this or that. Whereas now, I think it's more that people are following the same, norms. And I would probably argue that, now if you're a Bohemian, I don't know, like it's you just don't see, even in general society, most people are kind of following some sort of norms or another. Even if you go back in time to like only just the 70s or 80s, people were interested in different types of music. People were interested in different types of clothing.
Yes.
You don't see that anymore. And therefore in writers, you don't really see that anymore either. There's good and bad things to that. But I think, the time of, the guys who were experimenting with a lot of different things and writing about it, I think that's probably gone. It's probably a sad thing, in a way, because they had a certain view of life.
Yes.
And I mean, certain books that we would have read when we were growing up, you're kind of going, wow, what were they doing? In terms of like, their drugs or their, because I mean, the classic Lewis Carroll as well.
That's what I thought.
You just
Like,
you read that now and you're like, wow, it's. I just don't think that really happens anymore in society in general. So it's not like that. There's really stereotypes about writers anymore because people are more conforming to one thing now. Probably a bit sad, really. It's just changed. Society is different.
There's more scrutiny too. Like, I feel these days, if you say the wrong thing, there's this whole cancel culture where you will get really punished, even if you're wrong and you don't know it at the time. There's no space anymore for being wrong about something. If you want to have followers. If you want to do well, you have to think what everyone else is thinking. And sometimes that's bad as well, because again, we don't have to go to the extremes. You cannot speak your mind. It's like we don't have the opportunity to be corrected on something that we think, because, you know, if you publish your book and then you say something controversial, you might be kicked out of the business forever. And that did not used to happen as much. Like people who have to do very, very, very extreme things. And you'd see even then, I think there was more of an interest in a serial killer, like writing a book, like than it would be now, for example. So I'm not saying that's a good thing. I don't think personally that I consider that an extreme, for example. Like I would read a book about a serial killer, but I would draw the line at reading a book that a serial killer himself has written. But even that is a product of our society, and that wasn't a thing back in the day, back in a few decades, I think. So now you have to, it's like you can't have a personality, really. You cannot say the wrong thing ever, 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 or you cannot be misinformed about anything. I say something about history, for example, that it is what they taught me in school 20 years ago, and it has changed because archaeology proved something different. If I go in and show that I don't know my stuff, then, you know, I'm going to get the fans, really. And that, I think, could be another reason why we're more hesitant and we're more shy to share our work, or like be out in social media. I think if I was ever to get published, I would like someone else to handle that, because I'd be too scared of saying their own thing, of saying it the right thing in their own way, of, you know, not being able to read the room and all of that, which is much easier for me to do it with a small gathering, you know, with people that I know. But if you're, you know, like projecting out to a few thousand people, you are going to say their own thing to one of them, really. And then how are you going to handle that? I don't think we're all trained, or we can all take the pressure of correcting ourselves or knowing what's the wrong thing to say. It could be just, you know, not knowing history, for example, or being misinformed, but you're going to get punished for it today. And it wasn't a thing.
Yeah, I'll say it wasn't a thing. And now the issue is also that not many people are able to face it. Okay, it is the price. Yeah, I go for it. I don't mind paying that price. Here's the repercussion. I'm ready. I'm ready for the repercussion. Let's put it like that. Or it's a massive monster with 7 heads. What a dragon. Fine. You know, I stand for what I said. So I think there is a lack of courage, you know, because if, you know, people are not cowards, they're gonna face that backlash. Yeah, and of course you need to have, let's say, some resources or a place to live, that if things go wrong, you won't be in an awful situation. You know, you have a ceiling, you have food on the table, you know, you have a couple of people to hang out with, but you are still there. I think there is also an absence of heroes in this kind of day and age. And as we were talking, I was even thinking of you know, Jean Rimbaud. No, Jean Rimbaud was selling slaves in Africa. You know,
Yeah.
you know, why is he still read? Because his work is 5 stars.
Yeah.
No matter. I don't care what he did was selling slaves. It's, I mean, it's awful. I'm not going to stop reading his stuff because of that. Would I, if I would go for a pint with him, would I applaud that? Absolutely not. Would I let him know? At the moment we have the first pint, I will even wait. Would I open his book? 100%. In public, in the pub, you know, if needed, you know. I'm here with this guy, and I'm calling him out for what he does for a living, but he's an absolute genius when it comes to writing. Can we separate the two? Of course we can. Like a good person doesn't have to be a good writer, and vice versa. And a lot of good people out there, you know, who are not creative. That's fine. And I know a very good bunch of writers or other artists. Are they good people? Not all the time. Because they are people.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
They have faults, flaws, and that's completely normal. No? It's the same. I had this conversation with Kim and Schultz, actually, on this podcast. Those who are watching, they can go and check my interview with Kim and Schultz, an American. She's an American horror writer. So maybe I can bring her to one of our sessions. She's, you know, she's absolutely brilliant. Her ideas, her books are, you know, amazing. She's really a person you want to talk to. And she was talking of the music in that sense. That if we would be looking at the ethics of the rock and roll stars, you better just shut down all the music history.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very true.
That's it.
Yeah.
Forget about your, your idols,
Yeah.
because if you know what they did in Earth 5, probably will be disgust.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
But you still listen to and that's a good example. I wonder why so much of these people who are so Puritans, I'll say progressive Puritans, don't, I wonder if they stop listening to some of these musicians. I wonder. I will go to their bed and I'm sure I find, I'm a bit old talking about CDs here, but you know what I mean. I probably need to get into their Spotify account. But yeah. Yeah. Is there any questions, comments, critiques in the charts? Can someone check? There's none. I hope.
Or from the audience either.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe before the readings.
You're transfixed in what we're saying.
Let's do the readings first, if you don't mind, because
Yeah.
people might have questions about the readings.
Sure.
So let's do the readings first. So yeah, we talked about writing. I think it's time for us to back up, some actual work, We're not just saying writing is like this and there are a lot of things that needs to be corrected. No, we do the hard stuff, which is sit and write. And I know Jeroen is very keen to read his stuff. And yeah, over to you, my friend.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, this is an excerpt from my life story, which I just finished last week actually. And now I have to go and look at the editing and the photographs and all the rest of it. But yeah, I've finished it. So yeah, I'm going to read a short extract from it, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. I was now 27 years old, and I had not had any contact with my dad since I was 12. There were probably many reasons for this. My mum had wrongly or rightly blocked access and contact over many years. This was not the only reason, but one of many. I guess during my late teens and early 20s, I'd felt on one side quite a lost individual, and on the other side, extremely angry at the situation. Apart from my stepfather, with whom I had a very difficult relationship, my only male role models were my grandfather and my good friend Musa. Musa and his family were great friends of ours, and Musa was unusual in that he was a white South African convert to Islam artist who moved to Kinvara with his wife and 6 children. He could kind of sense that as the eldest male of the family without any male role model, I needed some help in coming of age and becoming a man, and took me under his wing. Among many other things, it was Musa who took me to karate first. After I'd given him so many excuses about not going to training, he turned up at the house one night with his son and daughter and another friend with just a karate suit and said, "Come on, we're going." Over my young life and all the way through, we became very close friends, and he taught me a lot. At the time, if there had been contact with my dad, it wouldn't have worked out well. My mum had only given me her side of the story and filled me with anger and hatred towards my dad. That's something I never really forgave her for. The amount of time and energy that was wasted when maybe we could have been building a relationship. Anyway, by the time I reached 27, I was still quite lost and severely lacking in self-confidence on so many levels. However, the anger and the hatred had dissipated over the years, and now I had a real curiosity about my dad. Of course, I knew his name and that he was a politician, so I found his number on the internet and I decided I would call him. I was pretty nervous about it. It was a Saturday evening and I thought he would be home, so I decided I would call. I called, and the girl who picked up, my sister, said that he was away traveling and he wouldn't be back until the next week. She asked me for my name, but I sort of avoided the question as I was afraid if he knew I was calling, maybe he wouldn't speak to me. She told me years later that she had a feeling about that call, and she knew it wasn't just a call from a constituent. The next week, I called again. This time I got my dad on the phone. I told him who I was. To my mind, he seemed totally calm and just happy that I called. I heard later he went pale with the shock and was not himself at all. I guess the politician in him took it in his stride, and his voice never betrayed anything to me. We talked for a while, and he said he was happy to hear from me. Straight away, he asked me for my address and telephone number, and was like, now that he had contact, he didn't want to lose it. Straight away, he also said that he was going to come over to Ireland as soon as he could, so we could meet in person. Over the next few weeks, we called each other a few times, and 4 weeks later, he came to Dublin to meet me. I will always remember the weekend my dad and I first met face to face. He was arriving on a Friday afternoon. It was a long weekend, so he was going to leave again on Monday. I was super nervous. I was excited, but I was trying to temper that with realism. I was so nervous. I'd gone out the night before and I'd had a heavy night with a friend of mine. I was hungover, to be honest. I had asked him on the phone how I'd recognize him, and he had said, I'm a big man and I'll be wearing a tweed cap with glasses. I was so nervous I was contemplating just leaving the airport, but held my ground. The flight arrived and all the men coming out seemed to be big men and having tweed caps and be wearing glasses. There were at least 3 guys, so I was standing there going, is that him? Then he came out. I recognized him from a photo I'd seen of him. I went to him, we shook hands, and we gave each other a massive bear hug. And then we got the bus into town. I remember thinking, okay, that's great. I've met him now, but what do I do with him for the next 4 days? He was staying in a small hotel in Ranelagh. We went there and checked him in. Then we did what any sensible father and son do who haven't seen each other in 15 years. We went to the pub. we had a lovely evening and hung out and chatted loads. He told me about himself and his family, and I told him about myself. We had a really nice time. He was a warm, open man, nothing like I expected or like my mother had told me. On the Saturday we met after breakfast. We went into Dublin city centre. He, like me, is a history buff and knew absolutely everything and everybody about the 1916 Rising. We walked around Marion Square, Grafton Street, then Stephen's Green, and he more or less did a tour of sites which were important in the 16 Rising. He showed me so much I didn't know. We were in Stephen's Green and he showed me where the gunmen had been in the College of Surgeons and why they'd picked that point. I thought I knew a bit about it, but he was a real fountain of knowledge. We ended up in O'Donoghue's for a few drinks in the afternoon. He was loving the trad music and especially the rebel songs and singing away with them lustily. Later that evening, we went for dinner together in Ranelagh to an Asian restaurant. It was really random. When we sat down to eat, I felt some of my mannerisms. I was looking into a mirror. The way he held his fork and knife or the way I did it. The weird thing was we were both being served by a different waiter and the restaurant was noisy, so we didn't hear what we both ordered. We ordered exactly the same starter, main course, and dessert. I had decided that this was the evening when I would ask the hard questions about whys, hows, and whens, about my parents' breakup and afterwards, and why there had been no contact, etc. He was very open and honest in his answering. To me, he was very open about his part in it and what had happened. I grilled him over dinner and afterwards too, but felt he never tried to dodge a question or dodge an answer, which being a politician, he would have been very good at. That was a hard evening for him, I think, but the fact that he was open and honest really helped us. The following day, he came over to my house, to the house my girlfriend and I lived in, and had dinner with us. And then we went into town and walked around the centre. Another month or so later, my then girlfriend went to meet the family in Ghent. I have 2 half sisters and 1 half brother and an amazing plus mum. In the very beginning, the eldest sister and I had a difficult start. She was 16 and I suddenly arrived on the scene. I guess she felt threatened by me. I set out to try and show her that I was no threat, just happy to get to know them. This was the start of an amazing relationship we would build up over the next 20 years.
Oh, that's powerful.
I really like the
Yeah.
parts.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear the rest and listen to audiobook because I think you'll
You do well.
do well.
Maybe that's just TikTok for audiobook.
Yeah, you blow up in TikTok with that. If you are TikTok star. Maria, it's your turn. Show us your good stuff.
Yeah, well, it is the good stuff because this is actually from my fantasy book and I've never published or read out loud anything of it. So I think it's more a treat for me than it will be for you, but fantasy, who would have guessed? So it's actually part of a chapter that I haven't finished. So I don't even know where this is going to go, but yeah, maybe you'll tell me in the Q&A. Deep in the sacred forest, the minor gods had gathered in secrecy. They were tired of being the laughingstock of the important gods and wanted to find a way to get back at them. Several ideas had been put on the table. Brand the way-bound altars had suggested the god of dying fire. Right? Insulting things about them on the walls, had insisted the god of dried ink. Complained the god of peaceful resolution, had offered the god of fruitless negotiation. The conversation had lasted many moons, had continued into many sunrises, and yet the minor gods could not find a solution that seemed big enough to draw the attention of the important gods, or teach them a lesson on respect and on sharing the human's adoration. The god of missing socks had had the same idea 100 times, caught in his own loop of whether it should be the left or the right sock that would go missing to wreak havoc. The god of broken clocks was taking his time analyzing how playing with the mechanisms of the important god's clocks would make them late in their appointments forever. The god of the last drops of leaking water was convinced that he had the means to drive them into submission by always adding one more drop to a perfectly constructed pipe. Outside their circle, a lone god stood. He had listened to everything, and he had not. He had cared about all of what was said, and he had not. But he decided he had heard enough. Keep men busy. Always put something in their path. The voice that spoke the words felt weak, carried by a wind that wasn't there, but got everyone's attention, bringing their conversation to a halt. Snare their minds with simple tasks, weave tricks on them, burn the bottom of their pants, dry their ink, let them fight with their loved ones, day after day after day. Let them deal with minor things and see them forget what's important. The gathering of the minor gods stayed silent for a while, evaluating this strategy. It wasn't long before they agreed that it was a good idea, that distracting humans from their worship would show the important gods they could all be important. One by one they left and went out into the world to teach everyone a lesson, one small misfortune at a time. The god of wasted moments leaned back and smiled. He would never be important, but he was now the most powerful god of all.
Oh, that Maria.
That's good.
Thank you.
That's really good.
So here is another author who definitely deserves space on the shelf.
Yeah,
I won't be
Think
an
so.
average space, be a special space. So publishers out there, if I were you, I would be quick because I heard of some interest around publishing you. I heard of. Yes, I suppose it's my turn now.
yeah, it is.
My turn. I've done plenty of talking, blah blah blah. So I cannot skip my part. So I'm going to read a couple of prose poems from my poetry book, Harry Kernov's Guest, which I brought here for you. It's published in both Portuguese and English. I wrote it in Portuguese myself. It was translated to English by the British author Gary Craig Powell. I want to thank him again. I cannot thank him enough. Now, the book, it's not only the writing, it also contains the works of the Irish Jewish painter Harry Kermov. Okay? And this was reproduced with a kind authorization of Kate Kermov, and she is the niece of the artist whom I just met in London a month ago. So I have a few copies with me. If you guys would like to purchase, I'm happy to sell that to you. It's 20 euro. I can sign. So those watching online can also order. You just need to contact me on social media. And I'll be in touch with the publishing house, and we can ship to your address. So I'm going to read a couple of prose poems. And I'm going to start with this one, which is inspired by painting of Connemara, which is one of my favorite parts of Ireland and of the world, on top of the universe. It's called Beech Trees, Rendville. Is it Rendville?
Rendville, yeah.
Because I have a government here. I cannot take it light. I'll be called out in a few seconds. Right. So I wrote this. There's a certain sense of morning at the end of summer. A light which, when it dims, instead of plunging us into the tomb, makes our flesh crawl with the cold. The so-called short days, they write us letters. They're telling us that we are brief, making us recover the will to again be able to look at life as an immense flame, immune to the darkness in which hope disappears in an insidious dance. The shops, they keep the same opening hours and have the same workers. Only the parklands of Connemara stick to their own pace, persisting in that green that wavers between virginity and wildness. So that's one of those poems. If you don't really fancy my poem, you can also buy for hurricane of works, okay? So the other one I will read is about Dublin. It's called, and it's an artist, a hurricane of merit, not mine. St. Audience Arch, Cook Street, which is near Christchurch. Right. So I wrote the following. I'll try to be loyal to the text. I have this thing when I'm reading in public, I do variations. Maybe I went to many Leonard Cohen concerts, so forgive me. But I like to do that. But I'll try to be loyal as much as I can. The day is yet to come when I may be allowed to pass below or above this arch. For now, that artistic curve simply brings back to me my early days in Dublin, when I was utterly anonymous and I could just let myself go from pub to pub with a tourist's tattered excuse of being able to wander about the whole city on that pretext of drinking the next pint in a different spot. Alcohol, like tourism and childhood, has always stood on the winner's podium of the best extenuating circumstances. Whether drunk on a balcony with a cathedral view, or at some inconceivable bar counter where they don't serve Guinness, whether to bring that arch in my mind to your house and hang it on the wall as if it were a hunting trophy, or in the bedroom of the hotel over there in the front, where once I woke at dawn and felt I was returning to Silesia, rising before a pile of trees, as tall as St. Audience Arch. Nice one. Yeah, it's all about I care not the translation.
Yeah.
But, it's good I don't listen to the Portuguese version.
Yeah.
No.
And Portuguese is not as good as my English.
Yeah.
So,
Did you say?
same as mine. Marcos can confirm. You see, there's a guy who speaks Portuguese and English, among other languages, and my English is better than my Portuguese. Since my English is that bad, imagine my Portuguese. Right. Before we close, it's your turn. So if there are comments on chat box, we will address them. And if people in person want to share their comments, concerns, that's your space. So make the most of it. Yeah, it always takes one. So who will be the first? There will be a first, I know.
You said about being able to disassociate an artist from the person who they are. Do you believe because with a novel, you're able to disassociate them because you're going into their world? It's easier to do it for an author compared to, say, an actor, where you would still see the person, so there'd be some association to who they are in real life.
Yeah, it's a good one. Can I answer that?
Yes, yeah.
I thought it was directed at me somehow.
That's a very good point.
That's a question from subscriber thousands.
Yeah,
I cannot take it.
he keeps raising the bar, guys. You
I'm
need
gonna
to
take
keep
it seriously. So. Special treatment, you know. Yeah, that's a very good one. Subscriber 1,000. No, not being serious about it. It's a very important topic. Yeah, there's an element of visibility which brings additional responsibility. If the person is around, you can see the person talking, moving. So perhaps it's not a straightforward process when you know that this person exists. It's not some 19th century poet. You know, it's like Humboldt. Yeah, that makes sense. But I'll still make the effort to distinct the word from the old, because I don't want to be birthed. First, I don't want to be birthed. No. First, so I don't want to die and not read a good book just because the author was a bad person. I don't think that's fair to me. And that same applies to movies, to music, to every sort of art. Okay. I don't care if it's only very controversial. I don't care if the author murders his mother. The book is still good. And there's a strong statement. He wrote it when he was in jail. Fine. I hope he was sent to jail. At least, but his book is still talented. And I'm going to recognize it. So what I would say is these are two separate items, the book and the author. And perhaps the book was written in a moment that the author was a very ethical individual. And he had that moment when he stabbed his mother. But that doesn't tell that he shouldn't be punished for murdering his mother. But the time when he was writing that book, it should be applauded, regardless of all the other things he or she did in the course of their lives.
I have a slightly different opinion from the point onwards. Let me grab this. I think, while in most cases, I think I would see what you're saying and go there, because there is some sort of like atonement. What if, ours is a way for a bad person to, redeem themselves for what they've done, or it can dissuade other people from making the same mistakes. There is something to be said about that. But I think for me, there would still be a line drawn, even if I wasn't actively doing it myself. Like, I don't think, especially as a woman, I don't think I would go for a book written by a sex offender, for example. I think that would be very difficult to me because there's a part of him that feels I'm helping him sort of profit from what he's done, because how can I be sure that he's actually like regretted it? And that's a thing that I think about people that are proven criminals, whether they're writers or actors. Now to, go back to your question a little bit, I think with actors it would be much, much harder because you're seeing their face, you're hearing their voice. Writers are hidden in the book. So it's not their voice really that you're reading, because we're always narrating the words of something else or something that's happening. If it's not an autobiography, I think it's easy to forget if this is a bad person or a good person. And the other thing is that, again, because of how society is and how social media is, you know everyone about an actor, but we know nearly nothing about a writer. They're not celebrities, they're not as out there. And they also, I think most of them don't have the means of actors. So if they did something bad, you might know because they wouldn't have, like, say, the money to cover it, or you might not because there's such obscure people in the society that no one would, publish an article in the newspaper about what they've done. So I think that's a big difference, but still, I 100% believe it would be much easier for me to read a book than watch a movie for someone who has done something really, really, really bad.
You mentioned one thing that we don't know much about what writers do.
They don't do much.
They don't do much, and I don't want to be the enemy of the writers here, but most times when I hear things about writers, I'm not really proud of being a writer myself, especially because of they fall for causes that it's all about promoting themselves as PR, which is pretty bad. Now, I would like just to expand on my argument here. Like, I'm a big Celine and Ezra Pound fan, and those two guys were they were not Nazis; they were the complices of the Nazis. They were deeply anti-Semitic, and I would say it. I would say it out loud. I'm a big fan of those two writers. Like Celine is probably one of the best novelists in the in the first part of the 20th century. And Ezra Pound poems, I wish they would be written by me. Now I hate their politics. I hate their view society, but I'm still a big fan of them. Their books, they are in my shelf, and if they are captured by the camera when we do this podcast, I have no problem with that. And if I need to justify myself for having those books there, I go and sit on that table and I say, they are amazing books. There's nothing xenophobic or anything about that in those books. And even if there are, you are able to read them and see, this doesn't make any sense. And I wanna somehow de-promote those two books. Like, you shouldn't, just like the same way as I follow some people on X that I don't necessarily agree with, but I pay attention to what they do. The other one is Heidegger. Heidegger is one of my favorite philosophers. Heidegger was a professor in Germany in the 30s and the 40s, and he didn't go away. I think Heidegger is one of the biggest geniuses in the philosophy history. And, well, he did what he did, but his main book, is probably one of the most important books ever written when it comes to understand human beings. It was written way before the mustache man
Mm.
got into power.
Mm.
And I will go back to this book every day if I have the time. But that book taught me a lot about existence, about how death is part of, our understanding of the world and our understanding of ourselves, how we bump into certain questions. That book has nothing to do with politics. So I'll go back to Heidegger and I'll tell it out loud. Okay.
Yeah, at the end of the day, there's a very thin line that we could cross over to censorship. And you don't want that. You want it to be your choice. Like, as you said, the Mustache Man's book, I haven't read it, but it will show the perspective of how he thought, of why he became so popular, for example. And it can be your choice whether you want to read it or condemn him for everything, including his writing, and say, I will never go near that book. But you cannot say, we should not publish this, we should not publish that. Now, again, I think I leave a little bit of space because I think there are some things that should never be said, like really, really extreme things, because you don't want to, plant the seed or nurture the seed of some certain things. But I think in most cases, yeah, let it be out there and let the people choose whether they read it or not, as long as it's not, like taught in schools or, forced to read it as part of propaganda or something. But yeah, it's a very, very big conversation.
Yeah, and I don't want the Mein Kampf to be taught in schools, of course, but it shouldn't be burned.
Yeah.
It should exist and should be actually something that you should be aware that there was someone who wrote that atrocity, and because of that, some people are now orphans. Some people don't know who their grandfather was. They know their grandfather from a photo when he was 8. Okay, so that's all I would say. Should we move to the next question, please?
No, from online.
Yeah, from online, from the same person, 2 questions.
Can you say the name of the person if the person, if
It's Kabir Singh 3434 P9K.
yeah, the number, no, that's not unless there are a few of them. The number 1, number 2, number 3. But I meant that there's one. Okay, can you say it out loud?
Yeah, so the 2 questions are, what is this live about? I mean the topic, and which country you guys are from.
The first question is everything, I think.
Yeah,
Yes.
You want to say this right now?
Do you want to answer that?
What is this all about?
everything.
I don't know. I don't know.
And I am originally from Flanders in Belgium. Maria is Greek and Vítor is Portuguese. That's
Yeah.
Expand
yeah.
quite a bit.
I want to take the opportunity to talk about our concept. What we call ourselves Witty Wicklow Writers Workshop. I start from the end, just because it's easy, because I know what to say about the beginning. I'll get there. I will come up with some sort of explanation. Workshop, because this is meant to be writing theory exercise between the 3 of us and those who attend. Okay, we don't give direction on how to write, but we tell about what is writing about, what sort of things we encounter, what do we learn, what changes our writing perspective, what should be written, in what fashion certain things can be written. So it's all things writing. Let's put in like that. Well, the first is self-explanatory, writers, no? So
yeah.
we are all writers, so I think we can talk about the behind the scenes. That's always very important. Like for instance, I don't paint, and thank God I don't. It will be a big mess first at home, and second because I think I wouldn't make a favor to writing history at all. But I like to know the behind the scenes. I like to know when people paint, what how do they pick the colors, how much the light impacting their work. Do they need to be in a quiet place so it doesn't interfere much as when you write? So I'm always interested in what's going on behind the curtain. I'm a curious person. The other one is because we are in Wicklow. We are in Wicklow, so
And when it's raining, there's not much else to do.
correct, and it rains a lot. For those who are watching online, so the other one is Wicklow. So we are based in Wicklow, and Wicklow because we try to make this fun, juicy, and entertaining. So I hope that's the case. So
I'd like to thank you very much. I wish you all the best in your writing.
Thank you.
And it's a great, this is a very good location. There's a very good history of writing in this area. And it's quite a lot of writing going on here. So you're very welcome. And I hope we see you again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I'll be in touch. I have your number.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other question, comments? Otherwise, we close. Maybe one more. I think there's one more. Yeah. No one.
You can't reduce it too.
No more questions. I'm going to talk about this podcast series and how is it integrated in the wider YouTube channel with your permission. Okay, so we started this venture in March, if I remember well. So this is our 9th episode, if my mathematics are right. And we, at some point, we thought we could do this live. Okay. We realized that the time was arriving. We're looking for a venue, a library makes sense. So there's this smell of books, and we don't have the sea view, but we have the sea sound.
Yeah.
Also, like
Really
sometimes the dark.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a train.
what's in the trade sound?
The train sound. I
ASMR.
like trains as well. Probably next time we can talk about transportation. Well,
Then I mean the train.
we can, yeah. So yeah, I do a few series. They are not all writing related. There are other topics. If you guys are welcome to subscribe, see what other avenues we explore. The three of us get together on a monthly basis, typically on a Tuesday. We do a bit later because of our own schedules. Just we couldn't do it later today because there are some constraints around the opening hours of the library. But typically we meet on a Tuesday at 8:30. So just a matter of keeping yourselves an eye on the channel, and you'll be told when next session will be on. I'd say beginning of the month, given there are Christmas and festivities, but probably around that time. So yeah, there are other episodes if you guys are watching online want to have a look at. They're all stored under Witty Wicklow Writers Workshop. There are also some short scripts, so I invite everyone to have a look because I think there's plenty of food for thought there. Yeah, so I think with that I'm gonna come to a closure.
Yeah.
I wanna give a huge, massive, immense thanks to Maria and Jeroen to be part of the first ever Ring of Culture event. I'm not going to talk about the Ring of Culture today. I'll leave it open. But it's somehow related to things we discuss here: art, writing, travel. So they showed up every month, and we have been quite persistent. And you also vow to the Vitor podcast, which is the channel I run with these two folks and a few others. So I want to say a big thank you to you.
Thank you for having
Thanks
us.
for having us.
Especially this one's a very big event.
Yeah,
Very, very honored to be here.
yeah, for sure. Thank you for having us.
I want to extend my thanks to the Greystones Library for hosting us tonight. And I wouldn't forget those who were nice enough to promote our event on the internet, namely Poetry Ireland, Greystones Guide, the Dublin Jewish Community, and the Wicklow Times. So thank you very much for advertising our event, and you folks who came here. Thank you very much to be here in Greystones Library, and thanks for the crowd that are watching us. So don't forget to subscribe. That you can check out other stuff on our upcoming episodes. If you know someone who might benefit from this conversation, don't hesitate to share. And if you enjoy what we did here, it would be great if you can press that like button below, and you'll be part of the big conversation. We have a drink now, and who knows, to encounter our characters on the pub. So have a good evening. Take care.
See you.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.